Now, from the news team that's covering the Carolinas, this is Channel 9 Eyewitness News Sunday morning.
A busy Sunday morning. We begin with breaking news in Northeast Charlotte. Someone was killed at this motel just hours ago. The chain of events that led to someone being shot as he opened the door to his room. An Iredell County deputy shot a suspect overnight. The reason authorities say the deputy opened fire. We're taking a live look outside now from our Speedway cam, but you can see fog is blurring our view. There's a dense fog advisory in effect right now. Of course, something to keep in mind if you're on the roads today. Meteorologist Jacqueline Shear is tracking how long the fog will stick around on the roads. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kristen Lee here with meteorologist Jacqueline Shear. Yeah, a lot of people are going to be on the roads today. It's a busy travel day. Something to keep in mind here.
Yeah, that family's probably headed back home, which you might be excited about. You might be sad about, of course, but they're going to want to be careful out there. That's for sure. That dense fog advisory sticks around until 10 a.m. and it's really causing some visibility issues. In fact, take a look at some of these numbers. We are seeing 3/4 of a mile in Charlotte right now. It's getting a little bit better. Earlier, we could only see a half of a mile right now in Lincolnton, Gastonia, 1/4 of a mile in Shelby for visibility. So really, you want to be alert out there, take it slow, and just make sure that your response time is ready to go. Maybe have an extra cup of coffee because you're really not going to be able to see very far in front of you. We're going to be tracking a little bit about what happens after that fog clears up because we do have some more wet weather on the way coming up in just a few minutes.
A busy weather weekend after what's been sort of a copy and paste sunshiny forecast lately.
Yeah, for sure. So lots more on the way before it's really over. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. This morning, thousands in the mountains are still without power after ice caused trees to snap and fall onto power lines yesterday. We've been monitoring the outages throughout the night. Right now, Caldwell County has more than 3,500 outages. Burke County has more than 2,500, and there are more than 500 in Catawba. Duke Energy says they may not get the lights back on to everyone until tomorrow. Breaking right now, CMPD and Highway Patrol are on scene of a deadly crash on I-485. This is in Ballantyne at the Johnston Road overpass. It happened just about 20 minutes ago. NCDOT says the right lane of the outer loop is closed right now. We do have a crew headed to the scene of this fatal crash, and we are working to get more information on how this happened. We're also following breaking news in Northeast Charlotte. A suspect on the run this morning after a deadly shooting at this motel. This is the Holiday Motel at the corner of North Tryon and Austin Drive. CMPD says the shooting happened just after 2:30 this morning. Police say there was an argument in one of the rooms. The suspect left and then returned a short time later and knocked on the door. The victim opened the door and the suspect shot him. Police have not released either person's name. This morning, state authorities are being called in to investigate a deputy-involved shooting in Iredell County. Sheriff Darren Campbell tells Channel 9 deputies responded to a domestic disturbance call just after 10 last night on Tall Oak Drive. It involved a father and son. A deputy heard screaming coming from inside the home, and the sheriff says the man who answered the door had a gun. The deputy fired, fearing for his safety. The man was shot in the abdomen. Right now, we are working to learn his condition. 6 days ago, a Mooresville officer fired shots at this man, Jeffrey Stewart. Officer Jordan Sheldon says Stewart drove toward him in this U-Haul. Look at all those bullet holes in that van. Stewart was not hit. Officer Sheldon was responding to a suspicious vehicle call at a fire station when he found that van. According to our partners at the Mooresville Tribune, Stewart's lawyer calls the shooting unjustifiable. He says he will file a motion next week to have Stewart's bond reduced. We've learned a Gaston County man accused of trying to kidnap a girl just steps from her front door is now out of jail. Our partners at the Gaston Gazette report Tim Varner posted bond on Friday. We told you last week police say Varner showed up in the girl's neighborhood 3 times trying to kidnap her. He grabbed her on the first try and the girl got away. On his 3rd try, neighbors followed him and cornered him. As part of Varner's release agreement, he must stay at his home in Dallas and cannot leave unless it's to see his attorney or go to court. Investigators in Rowan County are trying to connect a shooting and a hit and run. This started Thursday along Lincoln Avenue and Spencer. Deputies say a hit and run happened there. A witness told Channel 9 she saw a car speed away from that scene. Salisbury police believe that car then rushed to the hospital so 19-year-old Taiwan Gibson could get treatment for a gunshot wound. He died at the hospital. Investigators have not released any information about potential suspects. Church members attended this vigil in Durham last night, praying for the safety of a fellow member detained by ICE. We told you yesterday, agents detained Samuel Oliver Bruno Friday after immigration officials asked him to provide fingerprints. He needed to do that for his petition for deterred deportation. He's been living at this church for 11 months, seeking sanctuary from immigration enforcement.
Something that's very unexpected. There is a community of people behind them.
27 people were arrested Friday after they protested Oliver Bruno's detainment. ICE agents say he has no legal basis to remain in the U.S. Thousands of immigrants are making their way in a caravan toward the U.S., but the incoming Mexican government says there is no deal to host them while they await asylum. ABC's Marcy Gonzalez explains border towns are already struggling to deal with massive crowds.
A humanitarian crisis is mounting on the U.S.-Mexico border, according to the mayor of Tijuana, as nearly 5,000 Central American migrants continue arriving in his city. Officials and volunteers are helping the migrants, but the mayor of Tijuana refuses to deplete his city's public resources and is asking the United Nations for aid. A group calling themselves Border Angels has teamed up with other organizations across Southern California to help those migrants.
We've been there before. But this is the first time we do the Caravan of Love.
The so-called Caravan of Love will bring supplies such as non-perishable food, blankets, and toiletries.
These people are escaping a very difficult situation in their home country.
Many of those migrants fleeing violence or poverty in Honduras may be spending months in Tijuana. The president has already threatened to shut down the U.S. border.
We will close entry into the country for a period of time until we can get it under control.
For the entire border?
The whole border. I mean, the whole border.
He also says he's granted the military increased authority.
They have to. They're going to use lethal force. I've given the okay. Yeah, if they have to. I hope they don't have to.
But Defense Secretary James Mattis insists U.S. troops are just there to back up Border Patrol agents and will likely be armed with plastic shields and batons, not guns. Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Earlier reports stated there was a deal between the Trump administration and the incoming Mexican government to keep the asylum seekers in Mexico. But members of the Mexican government now say there was never any agreement. The FBI released new photos they hope will lead to the missing girl in Lumberton. Investigators say Hania Aguilar was wearing a white pair of Adidas shoes when she was kidnapped. They look like what we're showing you on your screen right now. They have black stripes on the sides and colorful stitching like this on the back heel. It has been 20 days since Aguilar was kidnapped outside of her home. Investigators say a man wearing a yellow bandana around his face forced Hania into her family's SUV before school and drove off. Investigators found the SUV abandoned 3 days later. Investigators have already reviewed more than 800 leads and interviewed more than 400 people. They say they're not close to giving up. There's a $30,000 reward for any information that leads investigators to Hania. Exactly 4 years after a Rock Hill teen mysteriously vanished, her family is holding on to hope. Aaliyah Bell disappeared just before Thanksgiving in 2014. Investigators say the 18-year-old didn't have a cell phone or any money with her. Aaliyah's aunt says they've held search parties and knocked on doors, hoping someone knows where she might be.
Don't give up. It's been 4 years. We haven't gave up, and we won't.
Aaliyah's family and friends gathered yesterday to release balloons in her memory. Protesters are now calling for justice after police shot and killed a man during shopping. Police say a fight Thursday night led to the shooting. An 18-year-old man and a 12-year-old were hit. Officers shot and killed Emmanuel Bradford as he was running from the scene. As we told you yesterday, though, authorities now believe Bradford was not the one who fired the shots, and the real gunman is still on the run.
He's a good guy. He's a military guy. He's military. He's a soldier. And they did him wrong, and they're going to have to pay.
Bradford's family has hired a high-profile civil rights attorney, the same one who represented the families of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. They plan to speak to media about this shooting in the morning. Police said Bradford had a weapon. They believe he may have been involved in the fight that led to the shooting. Charlotte and Seattle couldn't be much further apart geographically. Yet today, the Panthers and the Seahawks will meet for the 9th time in just the last 9 seasons. 2 of those were playoff games, including a Carolina win to advance to the NFC Championship game in 2015. Panthers players say that familiarity will make this game even tougher.
We just got to find ways to, create favorable matchups for us, and it's hard to do with a defense that you know what they're going to be in. They know you know what they're going to be in.
Adding to the stakes of today's game is that both teams are fighting for wild card spots in the playoffs. The game starts at 1 p.m. at Bank of America Stadium. Our sports team will, of course, have live post-game coverage on the matchup on Eyewitness News at 6. Taking a live look now from our Speedway cam. Still very foggy out there. In fact, it's still too foggy to see from our other cameras. Something to keep in mind if you're hitting the roads this morning, heading to church or the Panthers game or anywhere else. Jacqueline Shears in Severe Weather Center 9 with a look at your forecast.
Yeah, definitely a note about that fog. It should clear up about 10 a.m. But if you are on those roadways before that, just be extra careful. That visibility is so very low, less than a mile in most locations. But after that, we clear up for a beautiful day. Beautiful Panthers game. We'll be in the upper 50s, mid to upper 50s. So you might need a little bit of a sweater, but other than that, you should be all set. Nice and dry today as well. But tonight, that changes, and we could actually be seeing some snow flurries in some areas. We're going to track that coming up in just a few minutes, plus Hickory and Fort Mill. I have your neighborhood forecast coming up next.
The opioid crisis is harming a record number of teenagers. At 7:45, the groundbreaking solution in Charlotte to get teens on the path to recovery. An alarming number of pedestrian crashes in Charlotte.
I got halfway across, and the next thing I knew, I was on my face about 5 feet from where I was.
At 7:30, the improvements in the works designed to stop those deadly accidents. Some Charlotte neighborhoods are losing their history. Next, Channel 9 investigates the financial challenges in those neighborhoods and the push to help residents who can't afford homes.